I move the motion in my name. Madam President, foot and mouth disease is a clear and present danger to the Australian livestock industry. If foot and mouth disease enters Australia, our exports will be suspended for several years, which will cost the industry $80 billion. This will be devastating to rural communities. Farmers will not survive. Regions will be decimated. The country will suffer as a whole. The federal government will be on the hook for huge social security and assistance packages, as well as compensation for culled animals. The animals would like to express their desire to not be shot and burned. This will not only bankrupt farmers, it will negatively impact on the affordability of meat protein. If you think meat is expensive now, once we destroy a large part of the Australian beef industry, prices will go beyond the means of everyday Australians to afford meat. This is not a rural issue. Foot and mouth disease will affect every Australian through the cost of meat and dairy and through the additional burdens of the taxpayers to meet compensation and social security expenses. Minister Watt's response to foot and mouth disease has been half-baked and, quite honestly, dangerous. He has also, I believe, misled the Senate. Now, I gave the minister a chance to correct and clarify his remarks in a letter hand-delivered to the minister last Friday, requesting an attendance by close of business last Monday, and the minister ignored that letter. The minister must attend the Senate to explain answers he has given to my question without notice that could constitute a misleading of the Senate. Last Wednesday, July 27th, in Questions Without Notice, my first question was in respect of the foot and mouth disease vaccine being held in the UK, and read in part, this is what I said, quote, "If foot and mouth disease arrives in Australia, the short-term response would be to start vaccination." The minister's reply included the statement, quote, "The reason you don't vaccinate is that you are then deemed by the rest of the world as having foot and mouth disease." As a result of that misleading reply from Minister Watt, I have had to contend with suggestions on social media I was advocating for a measure that would destroy our beef industry. I said no such thing. The minister was given an opportunity to correct the record, and he has not. Minister Watt also stated that, quote, "What we are actually prioritising in relation to the supply of vaccines at the moment is providing them to Indonesia to keep the disease out, and that is why we want to support the vaccine rollout in Indonesia." I, of course, support assisting Indonesia with their foot and mouth disease response. They're neighbours of ours. We need to support them. On humanitarian reasons, we also need to support them. However, I might make the observation this response presupposes we know the strain in Indonesia and can access that vaccine if suitable. If we know the Bali strain, then why are we not placing the same vaccine we are giving to Indonesia here in Australia right now, in case one of the travellers returning from Bali has brought foot and mouth disease with them? Minister Watt went on and made the statement that, quote, "We don't necessarily know what strain of disease we would have in Australia," and, paraphrasing now, "We need to know the strain before we order the vaccine." If we do need to know the strain before making the vaccine, what are the million doses we already have in the UK? What strain do they protect us against? And at what cost? I received a call from the minister's office last Thursday advising we would receive an answer to the question the minister took on notice regarding how many vaccines Australia has stored in the UK, to which the minister gave an indicative answer of 1 million. That answer did not arrive, and it's been a week now. Madam President, why are these vaccines being stored in the UK? How much are we paying to store them in the UK when they should be stored here in Australia? On page 18 of the Foot and Mouth Disease AusVet Plan, Edition 3, it states that vaccination is recommended to start within 48 hours of the first detected case, and this may include protective vaccination of livestock in the area surrounding the infection. Minister Watt suggested in question time the vaccines could be here from the UK in 7 days, and this was sufficient. However, the government's own manual indicates vaccination would be an appropriate response after just 48 hours. Australia is currently holding tens of millions of vaccines for COVID in complete safety. If we are unable to hold foot and mouth disease vaccines in a similar way, why not? It seems to be proving easier to get a human vaccinated in this country than a cow. I'll just consider some other points as well, Mr. Deputy President. I note that the briefing last week by Minister Watt's staff said that the vaccine stays for hours, just hours on surfaces. Other sources in the United States reliably say that the virus stays on surfaces for a month. Therefore, if quarantine measures are not adequate, and it means they are not, then we need the protection of a vaccine. This is about food security for the people in this country, fellow Australians. It is about food prices and cost of living. It is about humanitarian support for the Indonesians. It is about support for our farmers, for our whole agricultural sector. As I said, the sector looks at, if foot and mouth breaks out here, it'll cost us a suspension estimated to be around 3 years, costing $80 billion lost exports. It also will gut our agricultural sector and tarnish our reputation, all because we are not being told the truth and we are being misled. And that compares with a few $1 million on a vaccine, which is the lowest cost option for us to protect our farming industry and our farmers. How much does it cost us to store these vaccines in the United Kingdom? This is about Minister Watt looking good, not doing good. All mouth and no substance. Thank you, Mr. Deputy President.